What's good, YouTubers and YouTubettes? This is JB Sports back again with another one. The Atlanta Falcons fall to the Los Angeles Rams 37-10 in another putrid, embarrassing, and lifeless performance. And it's time for Dan Quinn, head coach Dan Quinn, to be relieved of his duties. It's time for him to be put out to pasture. And it's time for him to become the ex-head coach of the Atlanta Falcons. You know, this team was in a Super Bowl 2 years ago. You know, had a 28-3 lead over the New England Patriots in the second half, I believe. A 28-3 lead. And they coughed up that game and lost in one of the biggest choke jobs in postseason history. Up there with the Houston Oilers when they choked the 35-3 lead in a wild card game against the Buffalo Bills and backup quarterback Frank Reich. It goes up there. It goes up with that loss as far as biggest choke jobs in NFL postseason. And it's time for Dan to go, man. I don't think the team's ever fully recovered from that loss. You know, the next year they was able to bounce back and get to the playoffs. They beat the Rams in a wild card game in LA and was able to get to the second round matchup with the Philadelphia Eagles and was right there in the red zone with a chance to win that game. I think they had first and goal in that game, had a chance to win that game, and they were unable to punch it in and advance to the NFC Championship game as Nick Foles and the Philadelphia Eagles went on to win the Super Bowl that year. The next year, after that, which was last year, they failed to make the playoffs. You know, the pivotal game of last season was the game against the Dallas Cowboys, where the Dallas Cowboys was coming in, and it seemed like the Cowboys had found their groove. They were a hot team right there. Atlanta was a team right there in the mix for the playoffs, and they let Dak Prescott and Ezekiel Elliott come in there and dominate them in the Georgia Dome, in the new Georgia Dome. I don't know what they call that thing now. That new stadium, the new indoor stadium they have in Atlanta. What do they call it? The Mercedes-Benz Stadium? I believe that's the name of it. Yeah, they let Dak and Ezekiel Elliott come through there, and the offensive line dominated the Atlanta defensive line, and they was able to move the ball and really dominate the Atlanta Falcons in that game. And from that point on, the Falcons fell apart last season and failed to make the playoffs. Cowboys springboarded that victory along with a bunch of victories in the second half of the season. They were able to win their division, beat Seattle in the first round, and lose to the Los Angeles Rams, a team that went on to the Super Bowl in the second round in a game in the divisional round of the NFC. So they have never been the same since the New England Patriots fiasco collapse. You've never been the same. Dan Quinn has not been unable to right the ship, and this year is just gone from bad to worse. You know, you're 1-5. You got dominated by the Rams, a team that came in struggling with their offense. They only put up 7 points against the 49ers, and that was 7 points on the opening drive as they were shut out the rest of the game by the 49ers. They come in here and they roll up 37 points. Jared Goff is back there making plays, you know, in the passing game. And they were able to pretty much dominate that game as Matt Ryan got hurt, ended up leaving the game. But the dam had already broke by that time, and the game was pretty much over and done with. And the team is lifeless, man. The team is speaking to you on the field, man. When you know they put up that type of performance, a lifeless performance. You know, the game, it's hard to believe that game was 3-3. I think it was 3-3 at one point before the Rams broke away and went on a 34-10 run the rest of the game and beating them 37-10. But the game was competitive in the first quarter, first in the beginning of the second quarter, but the Rams pulled away and they was able to dominate this game. And it goes to show that the team, like I said, is speaking on the field that it's time for a change. Because the first sign of adversity, you know, they come into the game like, okay, we're going to play well, we're going to win. We got the NFC champions coming into our building, you know. We beat them a couple of years ago, you know. We're going to come in here, we're going to try to right the ship off this game here today. And you're in the game 3-3, but the first sign of adversity, you're going to pack it in when you don't really believe in your coach. And that's exactly what the Atlanta Falcons did, man. They packed it in, and they fell apart, you know, and gave it away quicker than a hooker on Main Street, man. Gave it away real quick, man. It was a sad thing to see, bad situation. And it's time for Dan Quinn to go, man. Dan Quinn is good, from everything I heard, is a good guy. You know, a nice guy, you know, did a good job in Seattle as a defensive coordinator, and that's probably his calling. You know, he needs to be a defensive coordinator, I think he needs to be that. Maybe he can go to college and be a head coach, maybe in college or something like that. But he's definitely not the guy right now for the Atlanta Falcons. It's time for Arthur Blank, one of the top owners in the NFL, to make that change. Like Michael Jackson said in The Man in the Mirror, man, it's time for him to make that change and relieve Dan Quinn of his duties. It's about that time, man. He's the head coach, right? But he comes from a defensive background. He's a defense coordinator in Seattle on those Seattle teams that went to Super Bowls and went to multiple playoffs. And the defense is one of the worst defenses in the league. So if you're a head coach and your calling card is defense, and that side of the field is one of the worst defenses in the NFL, that's just goes without saying. It's time for him to be relieved of his duties. Freeman got into a fight with Aaron Donald. Aaron Donald had him jacked up, and he was fighting for his life. He swung and punched at Aaron Donald. Aaron Donald probably felt like a mosquito bite to Aaron Donald, big as he is. And he got thrown out the game. He didn't want no part of the rest of that game because he saw where this thing was going. It was going to hell in a handbasket, and he got the heck out of Dodge and got kicked out. So he's lost control of the teams. The players are not showing. They're not showing smart play on the field. They're doing stuff out of character. When you never seen Freeman act like that on the field, man. It goes to the top of the food chain, and that's Dan Quinn, man. He's lost the team, man. He's lost the locker room, and it's obvious by the way they played today and way they've been playing. And when they went a couple of weeks ago, when they went to Houston and played, the defense, was horrible in that game. Deshaun Watson did everything he wanted to do. He was able to throw the ball. He sat back there in the pocket all day, picking the defense apart. They ran the ball well. They didn't stop Houston from doing anything that they wanted to do. And it was a bad and sad situation to watch. And Atlanta Falcons need to make that change, man. It's time for Dan Quinn to go. Last week, the offense did show up. They played well against Arizona, but Arizona defense is nothing to write home about. And they were able to move the ball, and Matt Ryan looked like MVP Matt Ryan a couple of years ago. And he played well, and he got the receivers involved. And the offense put up 33 points, but the problem was the defense, like it's been the whole season, gave up 34 to Arizona. And then a special teams let them down with the mixed extra point, and Arizona was able to escape with a win last week. So the defense has been a problem for a long time, man. For a long time, going back to last year, it was bad. Even the year that they made the playoffs, after that Super Bowl disaster, that team there was not great defensively. They made enough plays to make the playoffs, and the offense that year was not as good as it was, and it all goes back to losing Shanahan. When he left and went to the 49ers, that was a big loss for that coaching staff, as the offense has never been the same. They brought in a college coach, the former head coach of USC, the guy that got drunk and put it out on video for the world to see, ended up losing his job. He was at a co-ed party, I think, too. He's around a bunch of, young women, young ladies out there drunk, and and they had to get rid of him, and he came to, I think he went to Alabama for about 10 seconds and coached them, and then he came to Atlanta, that year, that next year after they lost Super Bowl. And the offense wasn't that good, wasn't the same that year, but it was good enough to get them in the playoffs. And like I said, they was in the red zone with a chance to beat Philadelphia. And who knows what would happen if they was able to get by that game. Maybe they go beat Minnesota in Minnesota. Who knows? I doubt it, but who knows? And that's just what happened, man. Now they got rid of him. Steve Sarkisian, that's his name. I was trying to think about his name. Steve Sarkisian. That was the disaster, and they got rid of him, and they brought in offensive coordinator, the former Tampa Bay Buccaneers coach. I think his name Cotier. And he's coached them, and they've been hot and cold type of offense. Like today, they were cold. Last week, they were hot. And the week before that, they were cold. Got cold, especially in the first half. Cold and hot in the Houston game. They was cold in the second and third quarter, and then they got hot again in the fourth quarter when the game was kind of like out of reach. So the offense has just been very, very lukewarm, as I butcher that word. Very, very lukewarm. And the whole season, it just hasn't had the consistency it had since Shanahan left. And that's been a problem. So it's time for Dan Quinn to go, man. His overall coaching record is 37-23 in the regular season, 3-2 in the postseason. Should have been 4-1. You know, like I said, I already told you about that disaster, the choke job in Houston at the Super Bowl when they lost to the Patriots and gave Tom Brady his 5th ring. You know, so he's 3-2 in the postseason. So his overall record is 40-35. That's nothing to write home about. You know, that's mediocre at its finest. That's mediocrity at its finest. You know, 40-35, nothing to write home about. And the way this season's going, if he stay on the job, he could fall behind. He probably will. Ain't no could. He will fall behind. He will fall under 500, as he's barely over 500 right now by 5 games. So we'll see what Arthur Blank do, man. He's got some soul searching to do. I think he came out not too long ago, maybe about an hour ago. Or maybe not even an hour ago, I read up on a report that he said that he still supports Dan Quinn, but you know what that means? That's kind of like the trapdoor type of thing, man. You know, you walking in a room and you think you walking up and down the floor, and then you walk and there's a trapdoor right there, and you fall into the basement. And that's what that looked like to me. It looked like that was a trapdoor comment. You know, he said he still supports him, but he said he will evaluate him and the coaching staff. He said that about right before he made that statement about supporting Dan Quinn. He said he's going to evaluate him and the coaching staff. So, you know, everybody's paid. Stay close attention to the Atlanta Falcons situation tonight and Monday, because you could see something happening. I hate to see a man lose his job. You know, there's always the personal side of the things that people don't take into account. You know, him and his family and stuff like that. You know, if he get fired from there and maybe have to go coach somewhere else, he got to uproot his family and stuff like that. It's always trying and difficult situations behind the scene that people don't know about. But he gets paid big dollars, makes big money being the head coach of Atlanta Falcons. I'm pretty much sure he's taking care of his money very well over his coaching career. So he's well off. And, you know, it's just time for him to be relieved of his duties. And Arthur Blank, like I said, has got to do some soul searching and make sure he makes the right call in his mind. And I think he'll do that. And I wouldn't be a bit surprised if you see Dan Quinn is fired in the next 24 to 48 hours, and put it like that. You know, that'll cover from to Sunday all the way through Tuesday. Look for something to maybe happen somewhere within that time frame, if something do happen. Maybe they extend this and let this thing go another game and see if the team show any kind of life. But I think they're at the point of no return right now, and I think it's time for him to, like I said, be relieved of his duties. We'll see what happens. I think it said Dick Coulter is the offensive coordinator. You know, he coached the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Jameis Winston, you know, and he didn't really do a great job with him, as he was turnover prone then, and he's a turnover prone now. But he did coach them into a 9-7 season, you know, and they came within in Tampa Bay. I think that was Coach Hill's second season there in Tampa Bay, if I'm not mistaken. And he coached the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to a 9-7 record. And they came within a game or a tiebreaker of making the wild card round. So he did do a solid job there with a second-year quarterback in Jameis Winston. So maybe I think he would probably be the logical choice to be elevated to interim head coach if they do decide to fire. If Arthur, I said, I don't know about that, I think it's a singular. If Arthur Blank does decide to relieve Dan Quinn of his head coaching duties. So we'll see what happens in the next 24 to 48 hours. We'll see what transpires. But that's just my opinion on the situation. I think they need to go in another directions. Yeah, but we'll see how it plays out in the next, again, 24 to 48 hours. This is JB Sports, the man, the myth, the legend. I'll holla.